Everybody listen to We're Not Wizards. Because we are the best. And we're not wizards. No matter what anybody says. Goodbye.
Tell me, okay, because we're just diving into this. We'll do an intro at some point. Hello, welcome to We're Not Wizards. My name's Richard. I'll be your host for this evening. You join us just in the middle of a stunning revelation that one of the designer's designer, a gentleman by the name of Rustan. You might know him better as Rustan Håkansson. He's been involved in things like Nations the dice game, Tribes, Dungeon Rush, Warhammer Age of Sigmar. He's involved in a little bit of that. You might know him best.
Not actually the game Warhammer Age of Sigmar. It's a board game based on that. Otherwise, you might confuse people that I'm a miniatures games designer.
No. We're getting right. Well, people might be confused when they think about City Skylines. And then say, did he design video? Does he do video games as well? Which is clearly not the case.
Yeah. Okay,
we'll put the board games to one side, because that's not important, right? Tell us how you're actually one of the best game designers, well-known game designers, is actually Scottish. Because this is a win. Tell us how you're actually Scottish.
So the clan that I'm part of is Thurban McPhee, and there was actually a group from the clan who moved to Sweden about 100 years ago, and we have a very active Swedish part of the clan.
That's amazing. Is that why there's the kind of the slight redness in the beard? Is that?
I don't know. I have not investigated that in detail.
I'm claiming that he's one of ours. He's good. His name. His name's actually now Russell. That's what we're gonna call you, Russell.
There is an island called Colonsay to the west of Scotland that is the traditional home of the clan.
I'm aware of that. I used to, in a long time ago, I used to sell kilts. So I used to get American people coming into the shop and saying, my name's this. Can you tell us what tartan we are? What family we are? I used to get ridiculous kind of people coming from all different types of places, and it was always the case. You ended up, they would, and once they found out, if they were a member of the Fraser clan or, the McDonald clan, they would just buy anything with the name on it. So sometimes when they came in and they gave you a silly name, you sometimes maybe kind of made up what clan they were part of. So they would just go ahead and kind of buy lots of tartan stuff.
Okay. Yeah. I've not been to Colonsay yet. I would love to go there sometime.
Do you have your own kilt, or is it just your dad that has a kilt?
I don't have a kilt on my own. My dad has.
Are you going to get one?
Maybe if I go there. If you show me the shop where people can convince me to buy anything.
I can certainly do that. I've got contacts. You can get you a good price. We'll get you sorted out. It'll be fine. You'll be going around calling everybody laddie and everything like that by the end of today. Joking aside, thank you very, very much for agreeing to come on the show. I'm sure you're delighted.
Thank you for having me.
You're delighted now.
I think we're going to talk about board games at some point, but the important business first.
Yeah, I mean, to find a brother from another mother, it's a good day. It's a good, it doesn't matter. I've got to go and speak to some Americans later on. They'll all claim to be Scottish. You're the real deal, though. This makes me very, very happy indeed. But anyway, you're prolific, but you're also one of these board game designers who you seem to churn out very, very high quality kind of products.
Thank you.
Are you quite picky with the kind of projects that you take on, or are you quite picky with the kind of the designs that you decide to commit yourself to and see through to the end? Or are you constantly kind of creating something?
I try to not work on more than 10 projects at a time. So limit myself that way. But the amount of games that are published compared to the amount of games that I work on at all, the number that is published is very, very small. There are many games that get abandoned because I don't think they are good enough, and they need to go through many levels of approval, first by me myself, and because I do this full time, so my test groups are extremely important. I don't want to show them anything that is not as good as I can do it before actually showing it to them. So my first filter is myself. I do solo testing and try to make sure that what I show my test groups is actually good on some level for some reason, that there is something that is really interesting in them. And then what I show to publishers is, of course, another very major milestone for a prototype. And all sorts of things can happen, like in Essen last year, a couple of months ago, there was one prototype that I thought it was fantastic, and it had done really well with every group that I tested with. But then the publisher that I showed it to said, yes, this looks very good. But then they found out that it was quite similar to a 20-year-old design. That is, it's not exactly the same, but it's close enough that it's not reasonable to publish it, because it would look like too much was copied from it. And that's another level. It needs to be unique. It needs to stand out. And if I had researched as well as I could and tried to find, does this exist already? And no, I could not find it, but I searched in the wrong way, and someone at that publisher could find that, this is kind of similar to this game that already exists, and stuff like that can happen.
Does that? I mean, because there are so many games that are released. I mean, Essen, there's like a couple of thousands of games that they've been released, and I've always seen the argument about board games is that it's very, very difficult you can't patent or copyright a mechanic. You can, I think some of the bigger companies like Wizards of the Coast, they kind of copyright the name for a mechanic, so you can't use tapping as a mechanic elsewhere, but the mechanic itself is kind of spread out. Does that mean with so many games being out there, do you think it's more and more difficult to create something that people would say are unique?
Yes, of course. And it's more difficult, and it's more difficult to stand out in the market. But there is really no legal limit for that publisher to publish the game that I did. It's just that it's better for everyone to release games that are more new and stand out more. It's better. You don't want to be seen as a copycat as a publisher, and for a new small publisher, that is a smaller issue. For a bigger publisher, it's a bigger issue. So you want to check as well as you can, does this exist already? And if you have the choice between two equally good games, that one is more new and the other is more similar to an existing game, then I guess all publishers will choose a game that is more unique and easier, more really new and different from everything that existed before. And there are so many prototypes around that it's not really a problem for publishers to find something to publish.
Yeah.
And it's just if you find something that is too close, then most publishers will choose to not publish that one.
Yeah, because in many ways, the board game market seems to have been more divided. You get the Kickstarter board game, which is generally almost to the point of absolute completion. Whereas I know of people who are on they're into the published market, and for them to have like a board game develop, they don't really need to go to having it fully finished or fully presented. As long as the mechanics are there, as long as the idea is portrayed well enough, then a publisher, let's face it, 9 times out of 10, if you go along with fully produced art, they're likely to say, well, I'm going to change the art anyway. I'm going to bring in an artist. I want to change the cards. They're going to kind of change the components, which makes things kind of interesting. Have you, you mentioned that example of having to scrap the one you took to Essen. Do you think that becomes... Does that mean you've got to keep an eye on kind of what's out there constantly? Because developing a game, it's not just a 2-month process. I mean, it can be anything from, 8 months to 3 or 4 years, depending on how long you've had it. How do you
or
have
6 years for nations?
Well, I didn't want to say what were you doing during that time. I mean, goodness sake. But no, at the same time, do you have to keep your ear to the ground to know what kind of like the current trends are? Are you almost kind of having to second guess?
Several parts to this. Yeah. One part is, as a professional in the business, you need to know about the most important releases that are coming out as they are coming out, because you will discuss them with publishers. And you need to know about specific parts. And during development, publishers will ask you, how about something similar to this from that game? And if you know about most of the things, then it's fine. But you don't need to know about exactly everything, and you can check it up. But the discussions will be hard. It will be slow, and you will not really be a professional if you have no idea about any of the most important games that have been released.
Okay.
And that is one level. Another level is when I'm starting on a project, I try to research it in an efficient manner as possible, because if I spend a lot of time researching, I don't spend that time on developing or working on other parts, but I want to put a reasonable effort into checking, does something similar to this exist? And if it's really easy to find it, I would be stupid to show it to a publisher. Because, they search for 2-3 minutes and then find something that is the same thing, the same core concept. And then I've just been stupid to spend all my time on that project. And the further the project goes, the more I will try to find, does this already exist? But it is different from the other conversation about keeping up with new things. And the new releases that are coming out, I want to look at them to see where is the market headed, what is grabbing interest from gamers, and what new cool toys are people inventing. Because, as you said before, the tools spread. You will be able to reuse the tools that others come up with. And the bigger toolbox you have, the better to tell the story and to provide the experience that you want. But for me, the focus is not on the mechanics of a game. I want to have a core concept, a core idea of what is the experience I want to provide here, and what is the best way to provide that experience, and what tools can I use from everything that I know about, and what can I invent to really match this in the best way. Like for City Skylines, it was a new type of game in some ways, in that it's a cooperative city building game that is more of a sandbox style experience. And that was done to match the computer game as closely as possible. And as far as I'm aware, nothing really close to that experience existed before. And I've been asked before, like, this is so strange. I play this and it does not behave as I expect. And it takes a bit of time to get used to, because it's not what you think it will be. And for some, it's good. For some, it's bad. Many people want something that is similar to what they already know, just in a new package. And that is a big part of all new published games. Is mostly a rehash, remixing of already known ideas in a specific theme and in a specific setting, in a way that provides a new experience, but using traditional means that people are mostly used to. And it's easier to design games for that audience when you have a brand, when you have an audience that knows what to exist, and they will get exactly what they expect.
Yes.
Then the learning curve is not that great. It's just, okay, let's get into this. Depending on if you're making super heavy games like Vital Lacerda, for example, then people know what to expect from a Lacerda game. If you have a specific brand, it's easier to know, this is what I'm doing. Lacerda is doing lots of new things, but they are very on the most complex level from the normal board game industry. But so I don't want to say that he's doing a rehash, because he's not. So it was maybe a bad example. But when you do something that is more close to what people expect, it is a lot easier. I fail to build a brand for myself in that way. I don't do games that fit in the same genre. I do very fast games, and I do heavy games, and I do family style games and everything. I try to do all sorts of different projects that I like, because I will work on a game so much that it would be very stupid of me to work on games that I don't like. So if I work on a game that I would think that, oh, this is gonna sell well and be super popular, but I am gonna hate it, and then I spend 1,000 hours, 2,000 hours on working on that game, I will have a miserable time. So I will not do that. But
see, with things like the roll and write game, the genre that's come from like probably the beginning of last year, and it's still going. With them being a relatively simple premise, are you tempted to kind of produce a couple just to kind of help ride that wave? Because I know that there was a raft of them kind of came out. I know that I believe David Turtsey recently produced like a roll and write game as well. Were you tempted at any point to say, this seems to be catching fire, a lot of people are really enjoying this mechanic and this style of play? Were you tempted to kind of jump in and say, I'm going to make my version and see if I can get that published quite quickly or easily?
It can probably be seen that way, but it was not exactly how my thinking went. It's just that, this is a new cool tool, and I like to play these new games that are coming out. Especially Ganz schön clever was the trailblazer for that. And when I tried it, I thought, this is another way of thinking about what a board game can be.
Yes.
And so I started to experiment and think, okay, so what would my interpretation of what a roll and write game, how would that look? And I made several different roll and writes, and so far only one has been published, the Hex Roller game with Frosted. And it was just today I received the sample copies from it. So it's the expansion is printed and done, and just about to be released. So most games do not get expansions, and Hex Roller was successful enough to finally get an expansion. It was hard for the publisher to find a printer to print the expansion to in a cost-efficient way. So initially it was planned to be released at the end of summer last year, but it took until now until they found a printer to produce it to reasonable cost. But now it's done, and now people can stop complaining about why does the colors not matter on the dice. It is all because of the expansion. And the plan was that if the game sold well, the expansion would come out quickly. And the game sold well, and the expansion was finished, and it was just an issue about printing. But now, for the expansion, the colors do matter. But the expansion is a bit more complex. So that is why the colors were not used in the base game. So there are strange things that happen in board game production. But I really like roll and write games. I like to play them, and I like the format and setting things up very quickly. And I have a couple that I hope will be released within the 2 or 3 next years. So that is not really riding the wave and getting something out quickly if it's released in a couple of years from now. But
that was my thing, because I'm aware that they take, depending, because you could have something created. You could say, well, I've got the basis of this, and you have it created and ready to go in like 5 or 6 weeks. But if you take it to the publisher, and the publisher could say, well, our diary's kind of booked up for the next kind of 12 months, and I can't even slot this in with a different printer. It has to be on this particular part, because, and it could be unknown to you, they've maybe already got another roll and write that they don't want to bring kind of 2 out in kind of quick succession.
The big publisher that I've worked the most with is Cosmos, and they have definite slots for what type of games they're going to publish at what point in the year. Mm-hmm. So they have specific box formats for specific audiences, and they are going to release this and this and this for this half of the year, and this and this and this for this half of the year. And if they find something that is better or more time limited and needs to come out at a certain point, they will push other things to make space for that. So even if you have a spot and the game is going to be released, it might get pushed anyway later. And if you're unlucky, it can be pushed for several years.
Yeah.
But
how do you stay excited in the hobby? I mean, you say, this is something that you do full time. So what's your work ethic like? Do you just say, okay, here's my bottles of water on one side, here's my snacks and fruit on the other, and you just lock yourself into a room and you don't come out until it's finished? Or do you kind of jump in, take a bite, jump out again?
I've tried to be in crunch mode, and it's super inefficient to need to finish something and be done in that way. And especially the last spring, there was a game that I worked on in crunch mode for 3 years. No, not 3 years. 3 months. Last spring. Oh crap! It's too late. I'm getting confused in my head. It was last spring. 3 months. I worked on it full time, really crunch mode, and the publisher was really pushing for it. And what I felt was that I could not work on anything else because I needed to finish this game, and it was not fun at all. And it was not efficient. It was slow going. My normal process is to have multiple projects that I change between, and I juggle them so that I try to make sure that the projects are in different phases. So I can switch from one that is in a proofing stage and work with other things that are more early stage or in development and stuff. And this period last spring was really bad. And at the end, when I was done with my work and felt, okay, I'm really happy with it, how it is now, then the project was cancelled. And that was not fun at all. So I needed to take a bit of a break after that and make sure that no, I'm not going to work like this again, because it was very, very bad in every way. And it was not cancelled due to me at all. It was just that, okay, the project as it was had multiple stakeholders and one of them just pulled the plug. Wow. And it was completely unrelated and it was extremely annoying. Nothing to show for those 3 months of crunch mode, plus all the work I did before on that project.
Yeah.
That was
you look extremely calm after. You look extremely calm, even telling me that. You don't look angry or anything like that.
I'm probably a very typical Swedish person. I have a hard time to get angry. I take everything quite calmly.
Yeah, I noticed that. I mean, you will see, because if you as you discover your Scottish roots, I'd expect you to just like flip tables, go after people. That kind. We're not all angry. We just get a little bit annoyed, kind of now and again. What do you do to keep yourself inspired? What do you do to kind of reinvigorate yourself? You mentioned obviously switching between projects, but do you also kind of actively take time away from designing at all? I mean, do you do art, or are you an excellent cook, or do you do martial arts or something like that in order to kind of keep yourself kind of fresh and stuff like that?
I do volleyball. I have the height for volleyball.
Right.
I'm more than 2 meters tall. So
right, okay.
I have a lot for free when I play volleyball. But no, I'm not super into martial arts. I tried sword fighting, and I'm just too afraid. I'm a super bad Scotsman. I can't fight with a sword. When people are coming close to me with a blade, I'm getting afraid and backing up. So.
I'd just like to point out that in the film Braveheart, Mel Gibson was Australian. So, he was an angry Australian guy with a sword, not an angry kind of... That was Highland. Even if you go to Highlander, that was Christophe Lambert. He wasn't Scottish either. So this whole thing about us being angry with swords...
I wouldn't want to be in any of those films anyway.
Rob Roy... That was played by Liam Neeson. He's from Ireland. He's not Scottish either. So there's a little bit of a... So we need more
Scottish actors with swords to see how they really behave. Yeah.
Yes, that's what we need to be an awful lot.
The areas that are easiest to go to get inspiration for me is computer games and books, like normal fiction books. Mm-hmm. But the computer games are very close in getting inspiration, and you can see that in the City Skylines. But other games can really help to provide imagination as well. And if you compare playing a board game that someone else made and porting and using those tools directly, it is going to be close in some way. But if you look at a computer game and think about, okay, this is a new cool thing that they have done in the computer game, how would I go about doing the same thing as a board game? It will translate and be different, and it will not be just something that someone else came up with. It's more likely that you will do something new. And there are so many computer games coming out, even more than board games, and they are so easy to test. So my Steam account is kind of full. I have a lot of games that I try, and my normal way to play computer games is I play maybe 15 minutes, half an hour, until I think I have seen the major things that I've done and explored as much as I want to, and then I feel like, okay, I understand this, and I don't really enjoy playing through that much, but I test a lot of computer games and see what have they done here, and how is the industry for computer games going forward, and how can I think about this in board game terms. And then once in a while you come up on a title that is very interesting, and then I play that a lot. Like one type of game that I really enjoy is the FTL, Fast and Light, and it's very similar to board games in many ways. And the follow-up from the same studio, the Into the Breach, it's also very, very nice.
Into the Breach is on the Switch console, I think. Is it the isometric?
Yeah, but I only play on PC on Steam. Yeah. So I played it on Steam, so it's definitely available for that. And also more recently the Slay the Spire. I know many board game players really like that. It's a very interesting mix of card game and computer game, and they are using lots of traditional board game tools in a different way, and I really recommend anyone interested in collectible, not collectible, but deck building games, even if they normally don't play computer games, to try that out, because it's really well made.
What's interesting about Slay the Spire is that there doesn't seem to be like a mobile phone version of it.
It's so coming out.
In its place at the moment, there are I've seen literally hundreds of clones of a very, very similar game, and there's some very, very good deck builder games on the mobile. I think one of them is at Solitarica.
Mm-hmm. I'm not trying anything like that.
And you basically you're not kind of deck building, but you're playing like a game of solitaire, where you're trying to get the numbers in ascending order in order to create effects, and it's really, really kind of good. It's really, really good fun, and I'm enjoying that quite a bit. I'd love to see Slay the Spire, because while I've got my PC, I don't actively play my Steam account. It's another game that is on the Nintendo Switch.
I saw an interview with the designers, and they said that they designed the game already from the start to be playable on a mobile.
Wow.
So they are porting it, and it's ongoing. I have no idea when it's going to be finished, but they have said in an interview I saw that they are working on it.
That'd be cool, because I'd love to just play it, because everybody, both people I know that play video games and people I know that play a lot of card games, talk about it kind of all the time. In terms of yourself, kind of, if you were to partner up with a developer, designer, what would your ideal kind of dream team kind of be? Who would you most like to work with?
I've actually been talking to a couple of people about doing collaborations, and the kind of work that I'm worst at is writing story and making really lots of engaging words, and that is not my strong suit, and that would be a good partnership for me. I'm good at making things clear. I really don't like when you need to constantly refer to the rule book, and if you put away the game for a couple of months, it's hard to get into again. The way the game works should support the rules and should help you to remember the rules, and the rules should be clear and intuitive after you've learned them. Sure, they can be weird at first, and see, okay, why is this different from how it works in other games? Yeah, that's acceptable. But once you've seen that work and done those moves a couple of times, they should stick. And the easier and faster the game is, then the more pronounced that should be. But even for medium difficulty games, then I like games where you don't need to refer to the rulebook. And like for nations, people don't look in the rules to find all the exceptions constantly, because there are none. It should really be possible to play that without going through the rulebook. And for the first couple of games, there is a lot of learn, and the learning curve is very long. So a person who played it 3 times will always beat a person who played it for the first time if you don't use the difficulty system. And the same thing, a person who played it 10 times will always beat a person who played it 3 times. And the same thing, but in longer steps, a person who played it 50 times will always beat someone who played it 10 times. There is a lot to learn. And that's why we did the difficulty system. You should absolutely use it. And I'm happy that people seem to do it.
Is there any companies that you would like to be published with? Is there any kind of companies that you would, if they turned up, who'd be instantly, you would say, yes, I want to work with you? If they came along, saw a game that you had designed and liked it, that you would instantly say, yes, please, I want to work with you?
I am established enough that if I go to a publisher and say, I think I have a game that I think would work well for you, then every single company that I've approached so far has says, absolutely, we want to look at it, let's discuss this. For new designers, it's very hard to get in touch with many publishers. But when you have a track record and people can see what you've done before, it's, at least right now, so far, for me, it seems to be quite easy to be able to get in touch. And the publishers that I've thought about that I would really like to work with, most of them I have been in contact with one way or another. And it's hard to name any names because it might be about projects that are in development right now.
All right, okay. So I've kind of, you can't say anything in case.
No, sorry.
Oh, come on. That's not fair. Are you a person, do you like to attend kind of like the exhibitions and the conferences? I mean, will you take a journey to like the UK Games Expo?
I was at UK Games Expo last year.
Okay. Are you going again?
No. I tried to visit different exhibitions and conventions, and there are so many interesting ones that I like to go to. Like I was at Nuremberg last year. I was not there this weekend, and I always go to Essen. I've gone to Essen 14 times in a row now.
Wow!
So that is the main place where you can meet almost everyone in the business. And as a full-time designer, you absolutely need to be there. So Essen is the one I go to, but otherwise I try to mix things up. I was in Göttingen in 2018. I wasn't there last year. I will probably not go there this year again. This year I'm going to Nordsken, a mainly computer game related conference in the northern part of Sweden. I'm going to have be on stage and do some stuff for them, especially with regarding crossover computer games and board games and stuff.
Wow!
It's nice to help in every way I can for the local Swedish market, because we are quite behind, even if we compare to our immediate neighbors. Finland is quite advanced compared to us, and Denmark is more towards being a good board game country as well. Sweden is backwards. We are starting to change a bit, but the mainstream market is so far behind. So the only industry award about a family board game of the year, they are so bad that they even awarded the same game twice with a slight reskin.
Wow.
A couple of years later, they don't even know about the games that they award themselves. So, and I should not really be talking too bad about it, because one of the games I brought into the Swedish market won, when I worked in distribution, won that award as well. And there was a massive sales boost of maybe a couple of thousand copies. And it's not the same thing. Like if you win one of the Family Games Awards or Kids Awards in Finland, it's in the tens of thousands of copies that you sell extra. And in Sweden, it's a single digit, a couple of thousand games. It doesn't really help. No one cares about that brand, because it does not have a good track record, and the most of the games that are printed or promoted for the mainstream audience here, it's still kind of bad. There's very few games that are licensed from Swedish publishers into other countries, and very few games are licensed. It's starting to increase, especially with a couple of Finnish publishers that have started to do that over the last 10 years. So it's getting better slowly, and more international titles are finding their ways to Sweden, but mostly it's still in hobbyist stores. If you go into a toy store, and then the games there are really bad. If you go into a toy store in Germany, it's fantastic. There are so many good games, and it's the same audience that the stores have. It's just that the board game market is so much more mature in Germany than in Sweden.
Oh yeah, it's the same over here. I mean, there's a couple of bookstores that have started to stock games over and above the kind of the normal mass market stuff, and it's getting there, but there's still a long way to go beyond the kind of the specialist stores. So is there quite a kind of a, even though you say commercially there's a long way to go, is there quite a thriving kind of board games scene in Sweden? I mean, is there groups that you go to on a regular basis, or
Yes, it is thriving, and it's growing, and it's getting better. Sweden has a bit harder time than many other countries where people are living closer together. So it takes a longer travel. So one of my brothers lives in Netherlands, and Netherlands is roughly the same amount of people as Sweden, in a much smaller area. So it's much easier to gather a larger crowd without people having to travel as much. And when you're closer to other countries, you can travel and get new ideas from other places, and it's easier to get access to more groups to play with. And we have in Sweden, we are geographically challenged in that way. But there are groups. There are groups in Gothenburg. There are groups in Stockholm. There are groups in Malmö, very closely connected to Copenhagen, and those are the major areas. But they are weaker, I think, than in other countries. Like the scene for game designers in Copenhagen, for example, is fantastic. There are many active designers there, and the amount of testers that they can have access to is a lot bigger than anything I know of in Sweden. But there are smaller groups here and there, but not huge yet. I do what I can to try to help. So we have a Swedish convention, Stockholm Tabletop Expo, that is trying to introduce some industry sides to it. With my background, I can talk a lot to people and help people along, and I try to do that with new designers as well, try to help them and guide them and suggest who to work with and what to do at this stage that the prototype is in right now. So I worked with distribution. I tried my hand with publishing, and I was an employee at Board Game Geek as well. So I've been to all sorts of.
You've done everything. You've done everything.
Industry, yeah. I've had many hats in the industry.
You've had many hats. If people have listened along tonight and they would like to keep an eye on you, where do you exist on the internet webs?
Board Game Geek is the best. So if you subscribe to me on Board Game Geek, or if you want to talk to me, the easiest way to find me is just click on one of my games and click at the designer there, and you will find a way to send me a geek mail. And lots of people do. Every week I will get lots of mail through there from people either talking about games that I've designed or just ask about anything that come to mind. And I get lots of discussions with publishers and other people in the industry there as well. So the easiest way but for sure for me is Board Game Geek. I have Twitter account and stuff like that as well, but I use that mainly to talk to others who have Twitter accounts as well. I don't post a lot of stuff every day there, so you can find that through Board Game Geek as well. But look at one of my games on Board Game Geek and you will find how to contact me.
Look at one of the games, but also buy it.
I would be very happy if you play games.
Don't just
that I've
look.
done. So.
Press the button, buy the game, play the game, say something nice about the game. I think that's the important thing.
If someone is interested in roll and write games, then the easiest way to test my Hex Roller is through the app. It exists both for Android and iOS, and it's a very nice implementation. And it's I think it's getting the expansion for free as well in it, and it's just about to be released. And the Nations Dice game exists on several websites to play test to play for free as well. And if you like that, then you should get the board game version too, because I don't think the Unrest expansion for Nations Dice game does not exist digitally yet. And
so there you go.
If you have played Nations Dice game, then you should definitely play with the Unrest expansion. If you're really a gamer, it transforms what is mostly a family game into more of a gamer's game.
So there you go. You've heard it here first. There you go. And what we'll do is we'll make sure we put all the links in the show notes.
Fantastic.
So that we've got notes to show.
Click on those links.
Click on. We want to see those fingers. Click on those links.
Do you actually see the fingers when someone is clicking on it? That is impressive technology.
It's the type of technology we've got here. It's very, very impressive. If you want to keep an eye on what we're up to, go to the internet webs, search for We're Not Wizards, and you'll find us. And if you like what you've listened to tonight, tell someone else. And if you like us a lot, go to Apple Podcasts and give us a rating or a review. And don't give us 10 stars, because it makes us big-headed. But don't give us 1 star, because it makes us cry. Give us something in the middle, like a 5, because it's average. And we're just a little bit average. But the person who's not been average tonight is the rather wonderful, the rather fantastic Rustan Håkansson. Thank you very, very much for coming on, sir.
Thanks for having me.
I really, really appreciate it. There is only, there's 2 more things to do. The first thing is to remember that we're many things, but we're not wizards. Are we wizards, Rustan?
No.
Yes. Can you say that in Swedish? Can you say you're not a wizard in Swedish?
Vi är inte trollkarlar.
There you go. Fantastic. And the second thing is to say goodbye. So it's a goodbye from Rustan. Say goodbye, Rustan.
Hej då.
And it's a goodbye from me. Remember, stay safe, roll 6s, make something awful. But until the next time, hej då.
Hej då.
A wizard is never late. Nor is he early. He arrives precisely when he means to.